Hi, Bill Norberg.
Roy, how are you?
Very good. I'm really glad you can join us to this new episode of In the Spotlight. So today we have Bill Norberg. I'll give a short introduction, Bill. Bill has been with over 20 years sales teams, coaching, and driving growth for hundreds of companies, transforming them and how they qualify deals using MEDDICC and MEDDICC frameworks. Bill has history in the mecca of MEDDICC, which is PTC, where he was part of developing the methodology, scaling it throughout PTC, and then later on scaling it to the rest of the world. Bill today is a partner in Sales MEDDIC Group, and we even have joint customers with Spotlight driving both the methodology and operationalizing of that methodology together. So, Bill, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, you're welcome, Roy. And just to set the record clear, I do have a long history with MEDDICC and MEDDICC, but I don't want to take anything away from Jack Napoli and Dick Dunkel, who are really the two that put MEDDICC and MEDDICC on the map. So,
Fair enough. Yeah.
Tip of the hat to them.
Completely. Well, great to have you. I think this will be a great discussion. I'm looking forward to it. What I wanted to do, Bill, is to start by maybe just at a very high level before we dive into each and every role in the organization and how they tackle MEDDICC. And we're going to use the term MEDDICC and MEDDICC interchangeably in this conversation. At least I am. So maybe you can say a word about why is MEDDICC today so successful? What's the secret behind MEDDICC, and why is it sort of winning in the battle of frameworks?
Yeah. So there's no real secret to it. It's a methodology that when you follow it, it's more than just a checklist. It's more than just checking boxes for each of the elements. It's really an engagement model with the client and how you go about engaging with the client that helps sellers to really build evidence-based forecasts, evidence of an opportunity that's worth their time and their company's resources to invest in today, which doesn't mean that a prospect may never be a good candidate to work with. It's all about using your time and your resources wisely and recognizing those opportunities that are ready to be invested in versus those that maybe you should continue to market to as you continue to mature them, as they continue to ripen as a real prospect.
Yeah, and I sometimes I like to describe MEDDICC as it's actually common sense once you dive into it, and MEDDICC happens whether you do MEDDICC or don't do MEDDICC. So the economic buyer is there, the champion is there, the decision criteria is there, or it's not there. So it's in your deal whether you like it or not, and being aware of it is how you look for gaps and how you measure progress in the deal.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, it's the gaps that are important as you do your reviews with sales leadership or your management, identifying where the gaps are that give you your direction for next best steps to take with a client. And that's really the magic behind it. There really is no magic. It's all about being faithful to the methodology, and it will drive results with you.
All right, so let's talk about the word faithful. You brought it up. What's the number one reason of people sort of trying MEDDICC and sort of not getting the adoption they're looking for?
Well, it really starts at the top of the organizations. Everybody needs to be talking the common language of MEDDICC or MEDDICC, depending upon what your preference is as an organization. And it's the drive, it's the leadership that will drive the adoption process. So that's where it starts. That's where the real religion begins, is, with the leadership and believing that building, evidence-based forecasts as opposed to hopecasts comes as a result of understanding the MEDDICC elements. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to get a perfect score on every opportunity. And sometimes you don't need a perfect score to be successful, but following the methodology in terms of, what is our next best steps, what do next best steps look like, will continue to have you make progress in a sale. We talk about making advancements in the sale versus just having continuations. You want to advance the sale, not just continue the sale. So,
right. And when you say commitment of the sales leadership, how does it manifest itself when an organization is transforming into MEDDICC?
Yeah, every conversation about opportunities leads to a conversation around the MEDDICC elements. So we're able to analyze and use that language both to be clear in terms of, what's really happening with the opportunity, but also to cut down on the number of times or the amount of time that's spent reviewing opportunities. You find that when you get into talking about your opportunities, trying to break out of storytelling mode, storytelling hour, where we're just talking about what we did, how we did it, who likes us in the account, who really, really liked the demo and all of those things, to talk about the things that are really important. What is the criteria that they're using? What does the process really look like in terms of when they are going to make a decision? What is the customer's compelling event? Not the sellers. We all know what the seller's compelling events are, end of months, end of quarters. What's the customer's compelling event? And how are we aligning our sales process, our sales stages, our sales campaign around those compelling events?
Yeah, and I think you touched on a really good point, which is storytelling. The dynamics between reps and their management is they're constantly trying to inform and show progress in the account. And that's where storytelling is born, but sometimes it doesn't hold any control points in it or any substance of actual progress. So there's a lot of activity, there's not a lot of progress in the deal. And so how do you look at these storytelling DNA of teams, and how do you rip out that DNA of just let's update for the sake of update, but not look at what matters to de-risk the deal?
Well, it starts, there's a lot of pressure in the organization in sales, no matter what organization you work with. There's pressure to build pipeline. Once you build that pipeline, once an opportunity gets into the pipeline, now there's a lot of pressure to move it through the sales stages, right? And to have close dates, and when do you think it's going to close? And we artificially put deadlines on opportunities that may not be important to the client, but they're important to us from a sales perspective, right? So it's having a more mature conversation about what's the customer's compelling event. When do they need to see the result of making an investment in your solution, in your technologies? When does that need to take place? Because that's what will tell us really when opportunity is going to close. What do we do for a decision process in terms of influencing that process to help the customer understand a good buying process in addition to a good sales process? And bringing those two things together is really an important step.
Yeah,
MEDDICC will help the sellers and the sales leadership understand.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand the difference between our timeline and the customer's timeline, and how do we create a joint one. But you talked about again the soft storytelling aspect, and it brings me to another topic, which is updating the CRM, which is the place to tell all these stories. And we like to say text boxes in CRMs is the source of all evil. And so how do you look at the dynamics of updating the management, basically from a rep's perspective, and what they do today versus what's blocking this conversation from being effective?
Well, it's taking MEDDICC and MEDDICC beyond just checking boxes and ticking boxes. It's taking it to the point where it's a real engagement model with the client. Not looking at, for good storytelling, for, well, this looks really, really positive. We talk about coaches and champions, right? Number one selling error, as everybody knows, is mistaking a coach for a champion. Right. And it happens a lot, right? Because somebody really, really likes us. They really, really like our solution, our technology. They really, really like some of the features that we have. Does not a champion make. Champions have power, influence, and authority, and you have to do things that will help you to identify those individuals, test them, and develop them. Develop them in a way that helps them understand what a good buying process is, in addition to what your good sales stages look like. So it's digging into it. It's not, it's really challenging for sellers from a time perspective to record in text boxes what actually occurred. And your technology and new technologies that are in the marketplace today help to resolve that challenge and help to eliminate some of that tedious effort of recalling what did we do last, what's the next best step, and helping the sellers to document their good process that they're using with the clients.
Yeah, and I think when we look at these updates, sometimes in CRMs, and I think we spoke about that, there's dynamic in a team, in a sales team, to constantly show progress. And sometimes you should not actually show progress, because that's the most important information in the deal, that there is no progress. But everybody wants to update the CRM towards their Monday meeting and show what's been done. And so great, a text box now has a story of what we did with a customer last week. it didn't move the deal, but it checks the box of an updated, and so that dynamic is actually counterproductive to understanding where risk is. Instead of looking at what we did, the mindset should be what's missing in this deal and why is this deal not going to happen. And once that switch happens, then the conversations become effective. Do you see something like that?
Sure. And in our workshops that we do with our clients, one of the things that we stress is, MEDDICC and MEDDPICC aren't about right or wrong. Did you do something right? Did you do something wrong? It's really about understanding what has actually happened, what has transpired. You mentioned the urge and the pressure to move deals through the sales stages, right? It's pressure because the end of the month is coming or the end of a quarter is coming. Where's that deal? What are we doing? How are we going to move it forward? And sometimes nothing has happened with the client, but the seller feels a lot of pressure. So they're having a deal review and they say, and the sales leader says, that's been in stage 3 for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What's happening with that deal? And the seller responds with, oh, you know what? I meant to move that last night. I thought I did that. I'll move it as soon as this meeting's over with. Nothing has changed with the client, but all of a sudden we move to another stage in the sale. And because the pressure that we're putting on for, the compelling event being our compelling event as sellers, which is the end of the month, of end of a quarter, and not understanding what the customer's true compelling event is, so that we can align our sales process with the customer's compelling event, not necessarily just our compelling event.
Right, right. What about sales ops? So we're speaking about CROs and management. We're speaking about reps, but RevOps are enabling this to happen. Where do you see the role of RevOps, and what are the best ones doing to drive this?
Well, the technologies are advancing so rapidly, and you yourselves know with AI, how to help to capture the information. It relieves some of the burden on the sellers from recalling what the conversation was like, what somebody said, to actually being able to take advantage of the technology to really pick out those conversations and the key words and the key phrases that are being used by the client, as well as the questions that are being asked by the seller. So both from a training perspective as well as from a documentation perspective of the opportunities, there's a tremendous amount of value that RevOps can bring to the table in terms of understanding where the strengths are in the organization today, what are the things that we can work on to improve, both from a process perspective as well as from a methodology perspective.
Right. And I think it's an exciting time to bring all those together, the RevOps innovation and the mindset of the manager to drive the change. What are the things that are blocking change on a reps level? So management is committed, RevOps, maybe acquired technology to enable to drive this. What are the blockers that you see that are slowing down adoption at a reps behavioral level?
I don't know that it's slowing down at the reps behavioral level so much as it is the adoption at the management level, sales leadership level, that really drive the adoption for the reps, right? I mean, the old adage, you can only expect what you inspect, but how you inspect it, the things that you do from an inspection perspective will lead the sellers down the path of which direction they should go in. Should they just come up with quick answers, or is there real evidence of an opportunity that's worth their time and the company's resources to invest in today? As I said before, it doesn't mean that it will never be a good opportunity, but modulating that and modulating the expectation from the perspective of the customer's viewpoint, I think makes a huge difference. And it really starts with sales leadership. If sales leadership isn't leading the way, regardless of how good the sales reps are, they will follow the leader. And if it's expedient to provide quick answers rather than understanding the real underlying facts, the underlying evidence, then you'll get quick answers.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sales leadership is the make or break, and the commitment of the leadership is a make or break. What I saw with individual reps is people that did not have experience with that kind of a mindset is at some point they switched how they look at deals, right? They switched from how am I constantly looking at progress versus how am I constantly looking at gaps, and then structuring those gaps in a way that make me believe that if I really focus on those gaps, I'm gonna close more deals. I'm going to close them better, bigger, faster, and not waste time on them. And that mindset is sometimes hard to do because you constantly look at what you didn't do, and not everybody, was educated or coached at the beginning of their career to do that. And I think the leadership, going back to leadership, a good leadership is the one that's able to transform these reps. to think on gaps and not on progress. I think that the technologies today are operationalizing this in a very unique way. And what I think you guys are doing in SMG and Sales MEDDIC Group is unbelievable. I'm seeing some of the customers, joint customers, and their successes. So, Bill, I want to thank you for this. This has been a great chat about MEDDIC. I think a lot of organizations that are now going through this transition will experience all of these things that you touched on the management side, on the rep side, on the ops side. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks, Roy. Nice talking with you.